So today we are going to learn how to build our own catch game, the catch game that you just saw just now. And we are going to learn how to build a catch game where we have an obstacle and we also have different levels that our players can progress to. So let's start with our default Create Scratch project page. So when you click on Create, you will be able to see all these different things on the main page. So you'll see your default sprite cat, and we are going to now set the sprites that we want. So let's start by deleting our scratch cat and choosing our different scratch cats, our scratch characters. So the first character that we are going to choose is our bow. So this bow will be used to catch our apples, as you saw in the game just now. So let's drag our bow out. Let's have our apples. This will be what we are going to catch throughout the game. Let's have a baseball or basketball, depending on what you like. I'm going to choose a baseball. So let's set the size to something similar to the apple so that we are able to, have a very nice consistent sizing. So these will be our characters for today. So we have a bow, we have an apple. These will be what we are catching. This is what we are catching, and this basketball here, this is the obstacle that we will be avoiding. So let's do two other special sprites for ourselves. So one is our instruction. Let's press spacebar to start, and another one will be game over. So let's choose a sprite and click on paint. So this paint allows you to paint your own characters, but it also allows you to set your own text. So let's click on text. Let's press spacebar to start. And this will tell our players that in order to start the game, we need to press the spacebar. So let's choose a font that we like. You can choose handwriting, you can choose marker, curly. I'm going to choose pixel for today. And I'll go and set it in the center. So you can choose any color you like. I'm going to select black. So adjust the sizing to a size that you like. And once we are done, let's move on to our next instruction, which is game over. So click on paint again, and let's set our game over sprite. So this will tell the players that, if they catch the obstacles or if they let the apple drop to the floor, it will be game over immediately. So once we are done, we can rename our sprite. So we can call this press spacebar to start, and we can call the second one game over. So we know exactly what our sprite is talking about, right? So let's go back to code and let's try to start our game. So first, let's hide everything so that it doesn't look so cluttered. And then let's think. So when we start a catch game, what's the first thing we want to see? We want to see the background. So let's set our first background. So let's choose a backdrop. I will let my first background be blue sky. Let's click on the backdrops. Click on the tab, backdrops. And let's select another backdrop. So this will be my level 2 backdrop. So I will select a basketball court. So let me call the blue sky. Instead of blue sky, maybe I can call it level 1. Instead of baseball 1, maybe I can call it level 2. And let me choose a level 3 backdrop. So we're going to have 3 levels for today. You can add more if you want to. You can add lesser if you want to. So let my third one be a neon tunnel. Okay. You can choose anything you want depending on how you want it to be. Let's lead away backdrop 1 since it's empty and we don't really want a white background for our game. So let's start the game. So when I click the green flag, so before I start seeing all my bow, apple, and basketball on the game, what do I want to see first? So I might want to see press spacebar to start so that my players know exactly what is going on. So let's click on press spacebar to start, and we click on show. So let's show it and let's adjust it to the position that we want it to be at. So you can put it at the top, you can put it in the middle, you can put it at the bottom, or anywhere you want to put it. So I'm going to put it at the bottom, And I'm going to say that when my green flag is clicked, so whenever I start my game, I want this press spacebar to start to appear. So in Scratch, every single time we want something to appear, what we will do is we will click on show. So let's go to looks. So looks is everything that you see in your game, right? So your costume, your backdrop, and whether something appears or not, that is what you see. So every single time I press the green flag, I want this sentence to show. So I will drag show and I will fit it in. And at the same time, every single time I start this, I also want my backdrop to be set to level 1 to indicate that I am starting the game. So let's press show. Let's switch backdrop to level 1. So let's test it. So every single time when I press go, I want to make sure that it's seen. So let's try pressing go. Yes, it's there. Okay. But the next step, when I press spacebar to start, do I still want to see my sentence anymore? Usually when we press spacebar to start, our instructions disappear, right? So how we are going to make it disappear? Let's click on events. Since my instruction is for them to press spacebar, let's drag when space key is clicked. It can be any other keys on your keyboard as well, but since we selected space, let's focus on space. So when space key is clicked, I want this sentence to disappear. So how would I do it? Let's go to looks and let's press hide. Let's fit the puzzle piece hide to this when space key pressed. So let's click on the green flag and then let's try to press our space bar. It should disappear now. Ta-da! So it's gone. Okay, so we are done with our instructions and now we need to make all these different things appear when we press our space bar, because that's when our game officially starts. So let's go to the bow sprite. Let's go to events. When my green flag is clicked, I don't want to see it yet. So when it's clicked, I will go to looks and I'll press hide. So when space bar is clicked, so when I start my game, I'll go to looks and I'll click show. So for each of the sprite, let's do this. Let's do our default setting. Every single time when it's clicked, I will hide. When space is pressed, I will show. So let's do the same for both. So let's drag it out. When flag, when space. And then I will drag out my show and my hide. So let's do the same for basketball as well. And let's make sure that every single time after we set our code, we always make things appear and disappear. So let's press spacebar to start and everything will show now. Right. So this is exactly what we want. Okay. So game over will always not be there unless we lose the game. So we will handle this later after we handle the code for the rest of the game. So now, let's decide on what we want to do. So every single time I move my bow, I want my bow to move accordingly. So when I press the left arrow key, I want my bow to move to the left. When I press my right arrow key, I want it to move to the right. So how do we do that? So let's click on bow. Let's click on the sprite bow. And we need to say that when my left arrow key is pressed, then I want to move to the left, right? So we have a very special function in Sprite. It's called sensing. So it will sense whatever you're doing on your keyboard. So let's click on sensing and you see this key space press question mark. So what this means is if you press this space bar, then it will do something. So in this case, we want if left arrow pressed. So every single time I press to the left, I want it to move to the left. So I want it to move this side. So if you look at your bow, whenever you move it to the left and to the right, do you see the value of X changing? So X represents left to right. So let's say every single time when I press, I want it to move a little bit more to the right, to the left. So it's a negative whatever number. So what I will do is I'll go to motion. So in motion, I can now change my values of x. So every single time I click on the left arrow, I will want to do minus. I can do 10, I can do 5, I can do 2. So the number you put in will determine how fast your bow moves. So for now, I'm going to put 10. So let's do the same for right arrow key. So let's take this whole block and let's duplicate it. Duplicate means copy and paste. You can do Ctrl+C or Ctrl+V as well. So let's say when right arrow is pressed, then I want to change. So now I'm going to the right. So I need to change it to a positive number. So I'm going to erase my negative sign and I'm going to piece it together now. Okay, so if I just leave it like that, then I will just check it one time. But I will have to keep checking it during the program because I will have to keep pressing the left and right arrow key. So in order to do that, I need my forever loop. That means every single time, no matter at what second I press my left or right arrow key, it will keep checking whether the left or right arrow key is pressed. So I will put my forever loop and I will put all my puzzle pieces inside my forever loop and I will piece it together. So let's start. Let's press go. Let's press spacebar to start and let's try my left arrow key and right arrow key. And now you see my bow moving from left to right. So we are done with our bow. So next, let's try to coat our apple. So our apple has to fall from the top all the way to the bottom. So in order to do that, what we want to do is, let me move the basketball a little bit out of the way. What we want to do is we want to always make sure that our apple is set to the top of the screen. So to set to the highest point of the screen is actually 180. So y will be 180. So let's test. So now it's at the very, very top. At the very bottom of the screen is negative 180. So let's start. Whenever I click my space key, I want to show my apple, right? And I also want to add in one more thing. So let's say I game over, right? And I want to restart my game. I need to make sure that my backdrop is always level 1. So let's set it first to level 1. And I want my apple to always be at 180 degrees. At 180 Y. So let's set, go to motion, let's set Y to 180. So now it's at the very top of the screen. So after that, it will always run at the very top. So let's test. Let's press the space bar to start and it's at the very top now. So even if I move it elsewhere, if I press the space key, it will move to the top again. So I want it to start at a random position at the top because I want it to drop from here and here and here and here depending. And I want my player to have to guess where the apple is going to drop from. So in Scratch, there's a random position. So let's go to motion, go to random position, and let's just set it above set Y to 180. This means that every time when I press the space key, let's try, it will go to a random part at the top. So it will drop from there. Okay, so every single time when it's at the top, what I want to do is I want to make sure that it falls to the bottom. So to fall to the bottom, we need to change Y by something. So let's drag out change Y by, the default value is 10. Let's change it to negative 2 for our first level, because this is our level 1 puzzle piece. So let's change Y by 2, and let's say we are going to test it out now. So let's see that it drops. So we haven't fitted it in. So how we are going to do that is, let's click forever, change Y by 2. This means that Y will keep falling by 2. So without this forever loop, it will just minus 2 one time, which is not what we want. So without the forever loop, this will be the outcome. So when I click space, it will just drop by 1. So you see it's 178 here, which is not what we want. Let's add in our forever loop And we can see it falling to the ground like that. So this is the effect that we are going for. So it goes down all the way and then it stops. So after it goes down to the floor, what's the next thing we want? We want it to restart again. So how we do it, let's say if Y position falls to this current place, I want it to repeat from the top. So how do we do this? Let's use our operators. So our operators is our plus, minus, plus, times, divide, equals, less than, more than, and, or not. So you would have heard of a lot of these before. So let's say if it falls to less than 170, so let's say it falls to around here. Okay, let's see where's 170. Okay, let's stop the program first. Negative 170. It's somewhere here, right? So it's near the ground. If my apple, so let's say my Y position, let's go to motion, you can see the positions here. If the Y position is less than 170, I want it to go to random position and set Y to 180 again, right? I want it to repeat from the top. So what I'll do is, I can drag this out and I can copy and paste, right? So I can piece the same thing. So this is just a trick, so you don't have to keep redoing it. So forever, whenever it changes by 2, I need to keep checking whether it's less than 170. Every single time it's less than 170, I want to restart from the top. So let's test this. Let's click on go, spacebar to start. Let's see whether it drops all the way and repeats from the top. Yes, it does now. So we have succeeded in making our apple fall from the top again and again. Okay, so now we want to make our bowl catch our apple. So now when our bowl touches our apple, nothing is happening. If you can tell, the apple will just fall. So how do we make sure that every time it catches, we restart and we make a sound? So let's go to when space key is pressed as our default setting. Every single time, so let's click on our forever loop. Forever means it will continuously check something, right? So if my apple touches my bowl, so let's go to sensing, so we can sense when our sprite touches each other. I'm in my apple, so if touching bowl, so that means every time my apple touches the bowl, I want to do something. So I want to add a sound to tell the player that I caught my apple. So let's go to sound. Let's start sound chomp. So let's change our sound to something a little bit more catchy. So let's go to sounds, choose a sound, and let's select collect. So it will have this particular sound, which is what we want. So let's change the sound to collect, and then let's piece it together. So every single time I touch the bowl, let's press spacebar to test, we will have the collect sound, right? So we only want it to play one time. So every time it touches the bowl, I have the collect sound, and I want it to go back to the random position because I don't want it to fall all the way to the floor. So I will take what I had just now, I copy and paste again. Let me put it back. Okay, so press spacebar to start. When I collect, it should always start from the top again. So now we have managed to successfully set all of this. Yeah? So let's stop this, and then let's think a little bit about how we want our levels to look like. So let's say I want a score to determine whether my player has passed level 1 or level 2. So how do I create a scoreboard? So every time when we play a game, we can see how many times we have catched the apple, right? So let's go to variables. These variables will be our score. So we can set our own variable. So let's make a variable. Let's create score. Okay, so you'll see a new variable here called score. It will automatically show on your program. So if you can see now, it's 0. So we need to make sure that every single time when we start a game, the score is 0. So let's drag this set by variable to 0. So in our default settings here, in this block, let's set it. So after we show, let's always set our score to 0. So let's change it to score. That means our original score will always start from 0, right? So let's say every single time I collect my apple, I want to increase it by a score of 1. So I will change my variable, I will change it here. So every time I have the sound collect, I want to change my variable by 1. I want to change this score by 1. So let's test this to make sure it works. So it changes by 1 here. Do you see it? So it changes by another 1 and another 1. So it will keep changing so long as you catch your apples. So now is the interesting part. So every single time we hit a certain score, we want to change our levels and we want to change our backdrop. So how should we do that? So let's go to when this space is pressed, right? So whenever we start the game, let's keep checking what our score is. Okay, so if our score is 5, for example, I want to move to level 2. Okay, so how do we do that? So let's go to control, if, let's take our if block and put inside the forever loop, operators, remember this is your plus, minus, times, divide. So let's drag the equal sign and we need to see if our score is 5. Okay, so let's drag out our variable, which is our score. If our score is 5, then what do? Then we will switch our backdrop to level 2. Okay, so switch backdrop to level 2. Right after we switch our backdrop to level 2, we need our apple to start from the top again, right? So let's go to random position again. Let's drag this out first, copy paste, and then we drag it back. So let's go to random position and set Y to 180 again. Okay, so with every level, we want to make our apple move a little bit faster so that the game will get more and more challenging. So how should we do that? So let's set another forever loop. And then now, instead of changing by -2, we want to change it by -3. So a shortcut is to just copy this forever loop that we have set just now. And then we can easily piece it together inside our big forever loop. And we can change this to -3. So it will be a little bit faster than usual. Okay, so now let's test. Let's try to catch as many apples as you can until the score is 5, and then let's see whether our apple moves a little faster. So let's press spacebar to start. 1, 2. Do you see it moving a little bit faster than just now? So this is what we want. So every time is at number 5, we want it to be even faster. Okay, so just now it was very fast for both levels. So that means that there's an issue somewhere with the code. So if you remove this, you realize it's a lot slower. So how do we debug? We have to look at this particular piece. So that means this piece was fitted wrongly and we should fit it here instead. So if it's equals to 5, then I make it faster, right? So it must be within this if loop here. So let's test again to make sure that it gives us what we want. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then it changes backdrop. And now it's a little bit faster than just now. Okay, so we have created our second level for our game. So now we need our third level. So let's copy this entire second level code and let's bring it down to make our third level. So when I press my space key, let's say my third level, in order to get there, I need a high score of 10, right? So when I hit 10, what I'll do is I'll switch my backdrop to level 3. I will go to a random position, and then I'll set Y to 180 again, so it falls from the top. And I'll change Y by, let's say, -4 this time. And everything will be the same because I want it to behave in the same way. So this will be how I increase the level for my apples. So let's test it to make sure that every single time I hit 5 and 10, I change my levels. Okay, so I'm going to catch it until I hit 5 and 10. Yes. So now you see it speeding up, you see the backdrop changing. Then we have our next level, which is our last level. Okay, so you can make this level infinite, or you can add additional levels. Later we will see how we can do you win at the end. So before we get there, let's add in some obstacles. So a game is much more interesting when we have an obstacle. So every single time when we click on the green flag, we hide our basketball, and when we click on the spacebar, we want to show our basketball. But do we want our obstacles to appear from the start? Not always. So let's add in a unique feature to it. Let's go to Control, and let's add in wait. Let's say I want to wait 2 seconds before showing it. Alright, so I will now make my obstacle start from the top as well. So I will go to random position, like what we did just now, and then I will set Y to 180 as well. So this was what we did for the apple, so let's do the same thing. So let's go into our forever loop, and every single time, you know, it goes to the top, I want it to drop. So I want it to change Y by whatever number. So you can change Y by 3, you can change Y by 4, you can change Y by 5, it's up to you. So let's do a 4 this time. So if it hits the floor, we want it to go back up. So let's say if my Y position, so this is very similar to what we did for the apple. If my Y position hits something, right? So it's less than negative 170, so I need my operators. If my Y position is less than 170, what I want to do is I want to make sure that it disappears, right? And then it starts from the top again. But I want to stagger it a bit because I don't want to keep having obstacles. So let's say I want it to hide first, and then I only want it to show after another 2 seconds, right? So I will wait 2 seconds, and then I will show it after that. Okay? And I want it to show at the top again. So let me copy this random position and set Y to 180. Let me fit it in, fit back my puzzle pieces, and then I will fit this if position less than 170 back into my forever loop. Okay, so every single time I have my obstacles coming up randomly at any point in time. So let's say I collect my apple 1, and I collect my obstacle, nothing happened because I didn't do anything. But you see, my obstacle don't appear as quickly as my apples. So now when we have an obstacle, we kind of want it to throw game over whenever I collect the obstacle. So what would I do? I'll go to when space key is pressed, again whenever I start the game, I want to keep checking whether my obstacle touches my bowl. If it touches my bowl, I want it to throw an arrow and stop the game. So I will go to if block, I will take out the if block, and I'll go to the sensing, if touching bowl. Then I want it to disappear, right? Because it's a game over. So I want my obstacle to disappear. And I want to play a sound to indicate that I have made a wrong catch. So let's play sound until it's done. So let's choose a sound. Okay, let's go to sounds. Let's choose a sound. We can choose the sound oops to indicate that we have accidentally caught the wrong thing. Okay, so you can make it shorter, you can make it longer, it's up to you. But I'm going to keep it as it is. So let's play oops until done. And I need to tell my computer that I want this program to stop. And I want this game to stop. So let's go to events and let's go to broadcast message. So let's broadcast to our computer that is a game over. So let's put it under if block. After we play the sound, I tell my computer that it's a game over. So let's add a new message, game over. Press OK, and we will broadcast it. And after this, I want to stop my basketball from falling anymore. So let's go to control and let's stop everything in this script. So you see this stop all, let's change it to stop this script. And let's put it under broadcast, game over. So this means that every single time I catch my basketball, I would tell my computer it's game over. Okay, and I will stop dropping my basketball. So let's go to game over and let's make sure that it appears every single time I catch my basketball. So game over, I need to set my default. Whenever I click my green flag, I don't want to see game over, right? Because I'm just starting my game. So let's go to looks, let's click on hide. Okay, but whenever I receive game over, I want to show game over. So when I receive, make sure you select game over. So when I receive the information from my computer that the game has ended, I want to show my game over. So let's press show. And I want to play a sound to tell my player that it's a game over. So let's go to sounds. Let's search this sound loose. So you can play any other sounds if it's a game over, but I'm going to put loose. And then I'm going to hide it after I finish the sound to make sure that, you know, the whole program stops. And after that, I want to stop everything. So I want to stop my whole game. So I go to control and I go to stop all and let me paste it here. Okay, so now you have a full obstacle course. So whenever you catch the basketball, you will say game over and you will stop your game. So let's test our game. Let's press go, spacebar. You see your score setting to default setting. And then let's catch our apples and make sure to avoid the basketball. And we have made, let's try to get to level 3 for this time to make sure that everything works. Okay, so we are at level 2 now. We're on the way to level 3. So close, so close. Okay, and this time let's catch a basketball to make sure that so every time we catch the basketball, the whole game will stop. So when we press spacebar, it should restart. Okay, so this is how we are able to make sure that all of our obstacles and our games work. So another additional trick we can use is every single time when we let our apple fall to the ground, that means when we don't catch our apple properly, we can make sure that our apple also throws a game over. So we can make it a little bit challenging. So how we do this when space key is pressed, what we want to check is that our apple doesn't touch the floor. So if it touches the floor, that means if our Y position is less than, let's say 150, it misses our basket, then we want to broadcast game over. So if my Y position is less than 150, so let's go to motion, Y position less than 150, then I want to broadcast game over and I want to hide my apple. Okay, So let's hide our apple and let's stop our apple script. So this will make sure that everything stops. Okay, so now we are happy with our program. Let's test it one last time to make sure that it works the way we want it to work. So let's catch it. Let's make sure we can go up to 3 different levels. Reaching level 2. And 1, 2. Oh no! Level 3. So it throws the game over the way I wanted it to. So a little bit of bonus if you want to add in you win, if you want to set a high score. So what you can do is we can go to paint, we can add in one more you win whenever they hit a certain score. So let's set this code. Whenever I click my green flag, I do not want to see this, right? So I would say hide. So whenever I hit a certain score, I want it to show you win. So how do we do that? If I hit, let's say, score 20, right? So, or 15. So if my score is 15, I want this to appear. Okay, so I would say go to looks and I would say show. And I want it to play a sound. So what sound can I play? I can play start sound. And I can go to find a sound that I like. So let's see, win. I can put triumph. I can go to triumph and let me piece it together. So when green flag is clicked, I hide it. And then when I start my game, when space key is pressed, if my score is 15, I need to keep checking it forever. Then I want to show this thing and I want to say start triumph and I want to stop everything else. So I will go to control and I will stop all. Okay, so let's try this. So let me try to get to score 15 to make sure that I win. Okay, this is getting pretty challenging. It's so fast. So my game will stop and it will tell me that I win. So I realized that my sound didn't play, so I should have selected play sound triumph until it's done before I stop everything. Okay, so it's up to you how you want it to be. Or you can also start sound, stop everything else, and then you can wait a little bit. So this is how you can make your very own scratch catch game, and you can share it with your friends. And I hope you enjoy today's tutorial.